faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring a life unlike any other. The most precious thing for a person is life. Life is given only once, and one should live it meaningfully. When looking back, he won't regret wasted years nor feel ashamed for mediocrity. This maxim comes from the Soviet classic, How the Steel Was Tempered. Many have heard it and felt compelled to cherish time and live purposefully. So every new year, we ambitiously set plans, work goals, courses, books, friends. But once enthusiasm fades, those plans get forgotten. By year's end, we sigh. How did another year pass? Where did time go? Where did time go? This is precisely the core question a life unlike any other explores. Through Soviet scientist Lyubishchev's diaries, it reveals his lifelong time recording system. Lyubishchev was a Soviet zoologist and professor at Petrograd University. But this book isn't a typical biography. It focuses solely on his unique trait. He cherished time so intensely that he created his own time management method, maintaining it for 56 years. By examining this trait deeply, it unveils his time ledger, astonishing the world. Readers discover a human life can hold such immense capacity. Author Granin was a renowned Soviet writer who won the Order of St. Andrew and Big Book Award. Now, let's explore three key questions about this book. First, why was Lyubishchev's life so extraordinary? Second, what was his time tracking method? Third, how did he sustain it for 56 years? All right, let's dive into the first question. Why was Lyubishchev's life so extraordinary? As previously mentioned, Lyubishchev was a Soviet scientist. As a scholar, his academic research can be described as profound and extensive. His primary work was zoological taxonomy, dedicating his life to developing a comprehensive animal classification system. His entomology research was unparalleled, with unique contributions in scientific history. Beyond his main field, he excelled in agricultural botany, making significant contributions to crop yield improvement. Outside natural sciences, he possessed deep knowledge in humanities like philosophy and theology. He was fluent in 5 languages: Russian, German, English, French, and Italian. When discussing British monarchy, he could detail every king's reign. On religion, whether the Quran, Jewish scriptures, or the history of the Roman papacy, he spoke effortlessly and extensively. His lifetime publications totaled 12,500 pages. At 1,500 words per page, he wrote 18.75 million words in total. What does that mean? Printed on A4 paper, the stack would exceed 2 meters tall, literally works equaling his height. Each work was grounded in extensive research. During scarce free time, he traveled across Russian estates to meticulously classify farmland fleas. By 1955, he'd collected 35 boxes of flea specimens, 13,000 total, 5 times more than the Zoological Institute's collection. Each flea required identification, measurement, sectioning, and preservation, an immense workload. And this was only part of his life's work. Hearing this, you might picture a workaholic, but that wasn't true. His children recalled that when they asked questions in his study, he'd first jot something down before patiently answering. Only after his death, upon reading his diaries, did they realize he was noting the time spent. One year, Lyubishchev's son fell seriously ill. Lyubishchev put aside his work to care for his child, resulting in 28% of his annual work plan unfinished, according to his diary. During difficult times, he also spent hours queuing for kerosene and daily necessities. Hearing this, you might wonder how he managed such workload while maintaining family life. And Lyubishchev must have been extremely focused, right? Otherwise, time wouldn't suffice, yet that wasn't the case. Despite strong willpower, he often strayed into unrelated pursuits beyond his main research. For example, in 1979, he suddenly drafted annual plans, wrote a memoir about his father, then published a study on Dadaism, in art history, a paper on frost patterns, essays on Schopenhauer's aphorisms, and the Siege of Syracuse historical significance. These works were so profound that Soviet historians of ancient Greece and Rome consulted him. At age 75, he suddenly grew fascinated by frost patterns on windows. After careful study, he even wrote a formal paper on frost patterns formed by cold on glass windows, and regarding his wide-ranging interests and vigorous curiosity. Lyubishchev himself was troubled. So the question arises, how did he balance work, family, and hobbies? How on earth did Lyubishchev accomplish so much? This was also the author's burning question. Ultimately, he found the answer in Lyubishchev's diaries. Lyubishchev meticulously recorded every minute. From age 26, he logged daily time usage for 56 years without interruption until his death. In these diaries, author Granin discovered a unique time management system, calling it the time statistics method. So what exactly constituted Lyubishchev's time statistics method? That brings us to the second core question of today's talk. I'll explain this method in 3 steps. First, let's look at one of Lyubishchev's diary entries to understand its content. Olyansk, April 8th, 1964. That's the location and date. Category 1 work, entomology identification, DIE classification, 2 hours, 20 minutes. Report on DIE, 1 hour, 5 minutes. Additional work, wrote 6-page letters to Bulia and Hare, 3 hours, 20 minutes. Commute, 1 hour, 40 minutes. Rest, including 15 minutes reading Pravda, 10 minutes Izvestia, 20 minutes Izvestia, and 66 pages of Alexei Tolstoy's The Vampire in 1 hour, 30 minutes. That's Lyubishchev's daily diary, about 6 to 7 segments representing his time. The first step of the statistics method, accurately record work content and corresponding time spent. Sounds simple, but Lyubishchev maintained this not for weeks or months, but 56 straight years without missing a single day. To put it figuratively, Lyubishchev recorded every minute like a counting wealth, leaving 56 years of time ledgers. In these ledgers, patterns emerge in his time recording. At first, Lyubishchev categorized activities into broad groups like work, rest, commuting, socializing, etc., each with subcategories. Take work. For this major category, he divided work into type 1 and type 2. Type 1 included book writing, research, reference reading, note-taking, academic correspondence, etc. This constituted his core work. Type 2 work included academic presentations, lecturing, conferences, and other administrative tasks. For rest, he classified non-academic letters, newspaper reading, and non-reference books as leisure. This is Lyubishchev's first key point in time recording, categorization. So the second key point is distinguishing networking time from gross working time. Lyubishchev recorded networking time, excluding any breaks like phone calls, chatting with colleagues, or getting coffee. Thus, it typically amounted to 20 to 25% less than gross working time. Say you worked all afternoon. If you count 4 hours, your actual productive time was likely just 3 hours. This speaks to the rigor of time recording. Lyubishchev's third principle was brevity. He didn't log start or end times or personal reflections, only duration spent on each task. In this regard, Lyubishchev achieved unparalleled simplicity. In 1942, his son died in battle. Though devastated, he kept working and recording time with clinical precision, devoid of personal emotion. His logs from that period show no deviation from other times. This wasn't because he was heartless. In truth, the loss crushed him profoundly. His letters overflowed with memories of his son, yet his grief remained contained, never disrupting his work rhythm. Now, the first and foundational step of the time statistics method, time recording, is covered. Next comes step 2, statistical analysis. Lyubishchev's analysis was exhaustive. Daily summaries, monthly reports, annual reviews, and 5-year assessments. Let's start with daily summaries. Each night, he'd review the day's log to quantify accomplishments. Note, despite comprehensive logging, his daily summary only tallied time for type 1 work. Why? Because type 1 work represented his life's purpose. Each day measured progress toward that goal. In monthly reviews, however, he analyzed all time, work, rest, commute, socializing, leisure, with equal precision. Take August 1965. He spent 136 hours 45 minutes on type 1 work, allocated across basic research, taxonomy, entomology, supplementary tasks, and organizational duties. Every task's time cost was tracked down to the minute. Like basic research taking 59 hours, 45 minutes, broken down further. Under basic research, 9 subcategories: classification tasks, manuscript proofing, math, daily reference reading, etc. That's how granular Lyubishchev's monthly summaries were. Annual summaries were intensified versions of monthly ones. His annual reports were book length, filled with charts and tables, similar in detail but broader in scope, containing crucial data. For example, in 1966, he logged 1,906 hours on type 1 work, averaging 5 hours 13 minutes daily. Don't underestimate those 5 hours 13 minutes. He maintained this without weekends or holidays all year. Remember, in 1966, he was 76 years old and still conducted 5-year reviews. These 5-year summaries weren't exhaustive data dumps, but strategic assessments, like national 5-year plans, evaluating life goal progress. As an entomologist, his 1964 to 1968 review outlined completed projects toward biological taxonomy, documenting every minute spent on logging, monthly or annual summaries, and chart creation. Why all this effort? Was he just torturing himself? Absolutely not. The benefits of time analysis exceed what you might imagine. First benefit, enhanced self-discipline. As mentioned earlier, most people live spontaneously. Ask about their past year, they'll recall major events, projects, promotions, trips, but little else. Beyond those highlights, their time vanishes unaccounted for. But time logging maintains vigilance, like emperors constrained by Kijuzu diaries, knowing every minute is auditable. Second benefit, it brings clear self-awareness. Objectively knowing oneself is truly difficult. Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, tried Lyubishchev's method. So, after seeing his time logs from his secretary, he exclaimed, "Impossible!" Unable to believe how much time he'd wasted. If even Drucker reacted this way, imagine us ordinary people. On this point, we all must learn from Lyubishchev. Through years of time tracking, he gained profound insight into his own temporal patterns. He knew his peak daily network time was 7 hours, typically 4 to 5. He knew his reading pace, 20 to 30 pages per hour. He knew monthly summaries took 1.5 to 3 hours. Annual ones, 17 to 18 hours. He knew writing a paper from research to drafting took 40 to 50 hours. Friends claimed he could gauge conversation lengths without checking his watch. Having covered analysis benefits, we now reach step 3, planning. Step 3 involves creating plans and tracking completion. Analysis moves small to large. From daily to monthly to annual to 5-year summaries, planning works inversely. It's large to small. Life goals guided his 5-year plans, then annual or monthly ones, ensuring strategic direction. Like his summaries, Lyubishchev's 5-year plans were qualitative frameworks, focusing on core work. His work scope was exceptionally broad. For 1969 to 1973, he planned studies in mathematics, taxonomy, evolution, entomology, and history of science. Under 5-year plans, annual ones became detailed and quantitative. Guided by 5-year objectives, he formulated annual plans around yearly priorities. Take 1968 as an example. That year, Lyubishchev's central task was the International Entomology Conference in Moscow in August. This conference was crucial. He planned to present his empirical classification method there. Around this core mission, he crafted his 1968 annual plan, papers to write before the conference, entomology research goals, and major writing targets. He budgeted 3,650 total hours for 1968, allocated approximately as follows: 1,900 hours for type 1 work, 467 for commuting, 433 for socializing, 33 for personal matters, etc. So after 1968 ended, did he fulfill his plan? The records are unequivocal. Each year, he compared actual time usage against his plan. In 1968, type 1 work took 1,881 hours, just 1% off the 1,000 hour target. Commuting varied by 1.5%, socializing by 0.7%. Essentially, he'd precisely engineered his life a year in advance. This demonstrates the power of his time tracking method and his extraordinary temporal insight. Monthly plans resembled annual ones, so we'll skip details. Note the planning timeline. He typically drafted next month's plan immediately after completing his summary. Now, the book's second key question: what is the time statistics method? We've covered its 3 steps: recording, analyzing, and planning. Through recording and analysis, Lyubishchev identified his temporal patterns to inform planning. Plans were then tracked via subsequent recording and analysis. This loop gradually optimized his time efficiency. After hearing this, you might think it sounds simple. Just 3 steps? And anyone can do this. You're right, the method isn't hard, but the toughest part is sticking with it. The statistics method is like a drop of water. 1 or 2 days won't make a dent, but dripping for 10 or 20 years can wear through even the hardest rock. So why was Lyubishchev able to stick with time statistics for 56 years? The first reason is that he had a clear life goal. At 28, Lyubishchev set his life goal to establish a natural classification of organisms. This wasn't a small ambition. He aimed to classify all living things based on their evolutionary processes and kinship in the biological world. Lyubishchev believed his talents were limited and ordinary, so he had to make the most of every minute. He was convinced that by managing and using time to the max, he could achieve this dream. Lyubishchev was able to persist with using time. The second reason for the statistics method is his sense of duty towards scientific work and his belief in creating life value. For instance, Lyubishchev's time logs show that letter writing ate up a huge chunk of his hours. So, why would he spend precious time he'd saved on personal letters? These letters couldn't be published. They were seen by just one person, often a stranger. This highlights a scientist's responsibility to society and the people. And in Lyubishchev's heart, this responsibility was top priority, tied to his research goals. It was life's highest meaning for him. This powerful inner drive let him keep up a high-intensity workload from age 26 to his dying day. The third reason Lyubishchev could stick with the time statistics method was his set of work-life principles. First, he avoided tasks with absolute deadlines to dodge unnecessary stress and anxiety. Second, he turned down urgent jobs to keep his work rhythm and time schedule intact. Third, the moment he felt tired, he'd stop working and rest. Thus, he made sure to get plenty of sleep. Lyubishchev clocked 10 hours a day. Lastly, he blended work and leisure, mixing draining tasks with enjoyable ones. For anyone to keep at something, it sure takes willpower. But in Lyubishchev's story, we see that behind willpower lies a lot of support, ideals, beliefs, life principles, and more. These, together with Lyubishchev's time statistics method, it formed his extraordinary life. All right, that wraps up our interpretation of A Life Unlike Any Other. The reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.